Good morning, everyone. There were technical issues, so was not able to connect. Today, there are two topics which you need to cover. One is the money in banking, and the other one is the portion on the Indian economy. So, first, I'll start with the portion on money in banking, and just wait 1 second. Yeah. So, in this topic on money in banking, we all perhaps know that money is what money does. The best definition for money, which is given, is money is what money does. Basically, there are four functions of money, and any commodity or anything which performs these four functions can be called money. It's medium of exchange, is store of value, standard deferred payments, right, and the transfer of value. The four functions which money performs, if any commodity or thing can perform these functions, then that is called money. Uh, so in this portion, earlier, the concept and the nature of money is just about the evolution of money. And next comes your money and the near money. We know money now in this civilized society, it basically means a legal tender money. The legal tender money means anything which can be legally accepted in tendering payments. To be more specific, the money which is having the backing of the government. That is the rupee, the currency notes, and the coins which are in circulation. They are the legal tender money. That means if you're having the old notes of 500 or 1000, which are demonetized on 8th of November 2016, you have those notes with you. They are no longer money, right? You may be having the notes of the currency notes of maybe Nepal, maybe China, maybe dollars of US. They're not money in India. If talking in India, they're not legal tender money. In India, the currency which is backed by the RBI, issued by the government, that is money, right? So money consists of legal tender money, currency and the currency notes, and also the bank money. If you go down further the chapter, the measures of the money supply, M1, M2, M3, M4, wherein we know that the money which is deposited in our bank, that is in several accounts. We have savings account, we have current account, we have recurring deposit with the fixed deposit, out of which the money which is deposited in a current account and the savings account, that is called demand deposits. That is which can be withdrawn at any point of time on demand. You can withdraw that money by way of checks. So demand deposits is also as good as money in terms of M1. But we know for the M2, M3, M4, we also include the time deposits, which are nothing but the FDs and the recurring deposits. So in this portion, money and near money is a given. Next, near money we know, which cannot be called money in the exact sense, but they are just near to money, like bills of exchange in accounts which have done bills, receivable, bills payable, the bill of exchange, bonds, debentures. These are some examples of near money. And the physical copy of the study material which you're having, you must underline these portions for the MCQ pattern of examination. Coming to the definition of money, we have the traditional approach. Traditional approach basically money is regarded only as a medium of exchange. Now, this can be an MCQ that according to the traditional approach money performs this function of medium of exchange, right? So according to the traditional approach, money is C plus DD. C is currency and DD is the demand deposits. Next, monetarist approach, according to that, it's C plus DD plus TD. There is the time deposits as well. That is also included in the definition of money. Next, going further, liquidity approach. Under the liquidity approach, it's C plus demand deposits plus the time deposits plus savings bank deposits plus shares plus bonds. So this basically we don't take into account for the MCQ pattern examination, but here is according to the liquidity approach given by Gurley and the Redcliffe committee. Uh, Money is a matter of functions for medium of exchange, measure of value, standard, and the store of value. Primary functions, you need to go through these portions just for the sake of reading. Medium of exchange, measure of value, that is the value of any commodity can be expressed in terms of money very easily. Earlier when the barter system was there, the beginning of the human civilization, in the barter system it was very difficult to calculate the value of any commodity because it was only with respect to another commodity, right? So it was a very difficult task. But with the advent of money into the system, into the economy, now measuring the value of any commodity has become very easy in terms of money. Secondary functions, we know standard of deferred payment. Standard of deferred payment means payments which can be deferred to future point of time. Suppose I take a loan from you of 10 lakh rupees as of now. At the end of the year, I will have to repay you 10 lakh. Yeah, interest is something different. Interest component which I'll have to pay you, that is separate. But for 10 lakh today, I'll have to repay you 10 lakh later on. But this was not the easiness under the barter system. Barter system, there are a lot of challenges with respect to deferred payments. Store of value, we can store value in terms of money, but we cannot store the value in terms of, say, fruits and vegetables or any other item because they are perishable, right? And you cannot store in the form of any other commodity as well. But you can store the value in terms of money. So that is, it is durable, it is stability. Transfer value, you can transfer value from one person to another, from one place to another with the help of money. Contingent functions, I'm not going through. You can just go through these portions. Qualities of good money. Obviously, good money is which has the following characteristics of general acceptability, acceptable by the general public. It should be portable. Portable in the sense it can be carried easily. It's such that you can easily carry your 2 lakh or 5 lakh rupees in your pocket in terms of currency notes, right? Though not in the form of coins, but that is in the form of currency notes you can easily carry. Durability is durable. It has long lasting life. It doesn't perish. As I said, store of value. Divisibility is divisible. In the barter system, the problem was one commodity for other commodity. I'm exchanging one cow for 10 bags of wheat or for 100 bags of wheat. Now, if I have a cow, right, and if I want only 5 bags of wheat, exchange was not possible. What a point. If one cow was equals to 100 bags of wheat, then if the person owning the cow wanted or required only 4 or 5 bags of wheat, exchange was not possible because cow was not divisible. But in the case of money, it's easily possible. Homogeneity, money should be homogeneous. Cognizability, it should easily be it can easily be recognized, and it should be stable. The value should remain stable over a period of time. Monetary aggregates, basically, which we need to know is M1, M2, M3, M4. M1 is what? Currency with the public, with you and me in the form of notes and the coins, plus the DD, demand deposits with the banks, plus other deposits with RBI. M2. M1 is a narrow approach, remember. Narrow money is M1 because it is the value of M1 would be very less. Just one moment. M2. M2 is M1 plus savings deposits of the post office savings bank. It's only not the commercial banks in India. We have a lot of post office bank accounts and huge deposits are maintained over there because our economy being more of an agricultural economy, we have a lot of post office in the villages and where we can open up savings accounts. So M2 is M1 plus savings deposits of the post office savings bank. So the value of M2 will be more bigger than M1. Next comes M3. M3 is M1 plus time deposits of the banks, and M4 is M3 plus all deposits with the Post Office Savings Bank, but excluding the NSC, National Savings Certificates, excluding that. M4 is the broad money. Narrow money is M1, M4 is the broad money. Credit creation is again an important portion. In a sense, commercial banks create credit. You know, multiple expansion of credit is done by the commercial banks. The moment a commercial bank gives a loan to someone, that loan is not given in the form of cash. If you want a loan from a bank, you go to bank, and after your paperwork is complete and the loan amount is sanctioned, you cannot ask for cash. The bank will deposit the amount into your account, and loan account will be opened up. That's actually what happens. Every loan creates a deposit. The money uh, which you deposit, just one moment, the money which you deposit in the bank does not remain idle in the bank. You all should remember, you all should know rather right now that commercial banks create credit. Commercial banks will have to keep a certain percentage of the deposits with them as reserves. And in this matter, you must know there are two types of reserves. One is CRR, the cash reserve ratio, and the other one is SLR, the statutory liquidity ratio. CRR is what? The amount of reserves, the portion of reserves, the portion of the deposits rather, which a commercial bank will have to maintain with the RBI, with the central bank, with the Reserve Bank of India. A portion of the deposits, the money which has been deposited by we customers into the bank, out of that deposit, out of those deposits, certain percentage is to be kept by the commercial banks with the RBI. Because RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, which is the central bank of our country, is the custodian of the cash reserves of all the commercial banks. You know, Reserve Bank maintains the monetary policy. It brings out the monetary policy and the credit policy as well. RBI is responsible for ensuring the safety of the money of the depositors. So certain percentage of deposits held by the commercial banks will have to be maintained with the RBI. That is called CRR, cash reserve ratio. And one is SLR. A portion of the deposits will have to be kept by the commercial banks with themselves in the form of liquid cash, maybe in the form of cash or balance to other banks, or in the form of approved government securities, which can be liquidated at any point of time. So, whatever money a commercial bank gets as deposits, the entire money does not remain idle in the commercial bank. The bank, after deducting that prescribed portion of reserve, the CRR or SLR, the percentage in terms of the total deposit which has been maintained by a commercial bank, is dictated by the RBI. The central bank decides what amount is to be kept as reserves. Now, say for example, if that amount is 10%, That means if a commercial bank has received a deposit of 1,000 rupees, then the commercial bank will keep 10%, 100 rupees as reserve, and will give away rupees 900 as loan. Now, that 900 loan will create a loan account in the books of the same bank. Now, this 900 will be withdrawn by the borrower by way of a check. That check will be issued by to the third person. That person will deposit a check, suppose in the bank B. Suppose the first bank was bank A, now the bank B gets rupees 900 as a primary deposit. Now, out of this 900, the second bank, that is a B bank, will retain 10%, that is 90, and will give away 810 as a loan. Again, a loan account will be created. This loan will again be, the amount will be withdrawn by the borrower by issuing a check to someone else. That check will go to C bank as a primary deposit. C bank will retain 81 as a reserve. We are assuming 10% to be the reserve ratio, and will give away 729 as a loan. And this process goes on till infinity. In fact, what happens, you must know that this 10%, the reserve ratio, 10% is mathematically 1 by 10. Now, if we add up the credit creation by the several banks, there is 1000 plus 900 plus 810 plus 729 and so on. This process goes on till infinity. And assuming again, I'll repeat, the reserve ratio to be 10%, the total credit creation would be 10,000. 10 times of the initial deposit. 10 times. Why 10 times? Because it becomes reciprocal of the reserve ratio. Remember, in our example, the ratio was 10%. CRR plus SLR taken together. That means if the reserve ratio is increased to 20%, 20% mathematically in terms of fraction means how much? 1 by 5, remember? Now, if reserve ratio is increased, what does theoretically mean? That is, every bank will now have to keep more reserves with it and will have to give away lower amount as loan. Right. That means the credit creation amount will go down. That is, the amount of credit creation will become only 5 times. Why? Because the reserve ratio is 20%, that is 1 by 5. Reciprocal of that is 5 times. That means if the reserve ratio is increased, the credit creation goes down. If the reserve ratio is increased, the amount of credit created will come down. And vice versa, if the reserve requirement is decreased, say for example, if the reserve ratio is reduced to just 5% instead of 10%, 5% ka matlab 1 by 20. That means the credit creation will become 20 times. That is called credit multiplier. What the point? But this is a portion about credit creation. Again, from here, we also come down to one more conclusion, that how does the central bank control credit? The central bank controls credit by various methods, one of which is variation in the reserve requirement. That means if you come across a multiple choice question, that if the CRR and SLR are increased, then what will the effect on credit creation? The credit creation will come down. The amount of credit created in the economy will come down. Why? Because if the reserve ratio is increased, then the banks will retain more portion as reserve and will give away lesser amount of loan. So the amount of credit will go down. Got the point. Someone asking, so there was a mistake. I'll just check. Yes, here in the study material, there's one mistake. In the still before you, M3 equals to, it's just a small printing error. Is M2 plus time deposit of the banks. It's M2. This is right. SLR, someone was asking, SLR is statutory liquidity ratio. That is the amount of the reserves which a commercial bank will have to maintain with itself in the form of liquid resources, whether it's cash or gold or the approved government securities. Actually, you must know, before 1991, 1991 is a turning point for the Indian economy when the new economic policy was brought into account. Before 1991, the reserve ratios were very high, as high as 40%. Uh, that means CRR and SLR taken together was almost as high as 40%. That means if a bank is receiving a deposit of say rupees 100, the bank can give away maximum rupees 60 as a loan. Just imagine the problem. When you have deposited your money into the bank, 100 rupees, you will be entitled to receive interest on 100. That is, the bank is liable to pay you interest on 100. But out of that, the bank can give away only 60 as loan to others. That means the bank will be earning only on that rupees 60. That means you just can imagine the profitability of the bank would be very low, or rather, the rate of interest the bank would charge on the loans would be very high. That was the reason. At that time, the bank rates were very high. But later on, the reserve ratios were rationalized slowly and slowly. And if you follow the credit policy and the monetary policy issued by RBI from time to time, you'll find that at times the bank lowers the rates whenever the economy is in need of funds. Now, primary deposits and the secondary deposits, we understood perhaps whenever a bank is getting a deposit for the first time, there's a primary deposit, and the account which is created by giving a loan. Whenever the bank is giving a loan and another account is created, that is called the secondary deposit. We must know these terms: the primary deposit and the secondary deposit. CRR, the cash reserve ratio, is mentioned. Excess reserve is what? The amount of deposits which the bank is having after deducting the amount for reserves. The amount of deposits left with the bank for giving away as loan after deducting the reserves portion. That is for excess reserves. Credit multiplier we explained will be reciprocal of the reserve ratio. That is 1 divided by R basically. Right? This is what I was explaining you. Credit creation process we explained, so we'll not be reading it word by word from the book. Next, limitations of credit creation. What are the limitations of credit creation with the banks? Obviously, uh, there are several limitations on the power of bank to create credit. One is the reserve ratio specified by the Reserve Bank. I hope you understand. Just when you're saying that before 1991, the reserve ratios were very high in India. Obviously, the reserve ratios were high, the credit creation was low. One limitation is that. And another important limitation is the lack of availability of proper securities. Suppose the bank is left with an excess reserve. Excess is what? Which can be given as loan. The bank is left with an excess reserve of say 500 crores. That is, the bank can give away as loan. Now, suppose the borrowers are coming, but whenever a borrower is coming, the bank cannot straight away give you the loan. The bank will have to do its due diligence. The bank will have to check the papers, will have to look at the proper collaterals. And in many cases in India, we have found the banks are unable to give away loans because of the lack of proper securities available. Suppose I go to a bank for a loan, the bank asks for collateral. I say that building is mine. Bank says paper, I don't have. You know why? Because there is an ancestral property inherited through generations. I have a huge piece of land, but I don't have papers. That is a problem. So, in the absence of proper documentation, bank cannot give the loan. Again, another important feature is limitation is the lack of proper business environment. Banks right now are sitting with cash reserves to give away loan. Borrowers are missing. If the business opportunity is not there, what will I do by taking a loan? You got a point. So if the economic scenario, if the business scenario in the country is not good, is not proper, is not conducive, banks cannot force to take a loan. Again, another limitation is the banking habits of the people. If you remember very well, after 2016, the demonetization, the Narendra Modi government was constantly pushing in for the banking transactions that let the money come into the banking system. Online transactions. The more the banking transaction, that means what? More of the money is coming into the banking channels. And if the more money comes to the banking channel, the power of commercial banks to give away credit increases. In a country like India, the problem is the banking habits of the people are very poor. We prefer cash instead of the bank. Obviously, now the younger generation is moving towards that, but still the majority of the population is still not that acquainted with the banking transactions. So that's another limitation. So these are the limitations of the credit creation by a commercial bank. One important again limitation was leakages. Leakages is what? Suppose when in our example, when Bank A had given away a loan of 900, we assume that that amount of 900 is withdrawn by the borrower by way of a check, and that is equal to B Bank. B Bank gives away a loan of 810, deducting 10%, and the borrower of that loan issues a check again to the third person. But suppose when you're having a check, you can withdraw itself. You can withdraw cash. Now, if someone gets a loan and if he withdraws it in cash, the credit creation process stops over there. Got the point? So that is again a limitation. In that case, it will not go up till infinity. Next. Well, let me answer a question that when we are doing online transactions, there are bank charges at times of 2%. Yes, in certain transactions there are there. It's basically, ma'am, a kind of a convenience fee. Uh, you're getting the convenience of doing your transactions at your place. Rather, if you'd have gone down, you have spent your time, you have spent money for the conveyance, right? You're standing in the queue, so you are, you know, saving all those things. So as a convenience fee, yes, that has to be charged. In times it's charged. Comes the quantity theory of money. Quantity theory of money was given by Professor Irwin Fisher. Uh, this theory basically explains the relationship of the quantity of money and the price level. Or rather, we can also say the quantity of money and the value of money. The theory states very simple thing which even our everyday household, maybe if you're having elderly people in your family, your grandparents, maybe at times you must have heard them saying that, just use a bit of Hindi if you allow me, that आजकल तो पैसे की कीमत ही नहीं रही. Today rupee has left, does not have any value. Parents and grandparents might be saying. They might be saying that in our times, in 10 rupees, we used to purchase so much of this thing. Gold was only this much value, right? हमारे ज़माने में तो 1 रुपया में ये हो जाता था, 10 रुपये में ये हो जाता था, right? That means what? The value of money has fallen over the years. And yes, it has. Why? The simple reason, if you put it as per Fisher, the quantity of money in circulation has increased. The quantity of money in circulation has increased manifold, many times. And with every increase in money supply, the value of money is going down. The logic is very simple. Too much money is chasing too few goods. Too much money is chasing too few goods. What does it mean? With the increase in money supply, the income level of all the people in the economy is increasing. The money income which you're earning is increasing. That is, your purchasing power is increasing. With every increase in purchasing power, the demand for the goods and services is increasing, but the production is not increasing proportionately, and therefore the price level is increasing. This is what Fisher says, that the price level is directly proportional to the quantity of money in circulation. Greater the quantity of money in circulation, higher will be the price level. Lesser the quantity of money in circulation, lower will be the price level. Got the point? Now, here, what does Fisher say? According to Fisher, the equation, this is the equation exchange before you on the screen. MV equals to PT. MV. M is the quantity of money supply in the economy. M. V is the velocity of money. Velocity of money means how fast money is changing hands. I hope you understand the velocity of money in 1980s or 1990s was much lower than today. How come? In 1980s and 90s, we did not have so many transactions. We did not have any payments for the cell phones, for the recharge of the DTH cable TVs, for blah blah blah. So many expenses which have had been added to our day-to-day life nowadays, which were not early in 1980s. I'm just trying to explain what's the meaning of velocity of money. Velocity of money means how fast money changes hands. So MV is equals to PT. M is quantity of money in circulation. V is velocity of money in circulation. T is the price level. T is the total transactions in the physical goods. Fisher assumes that in the short run, V and T are constant. It assumes that V, velocity of money in circulation, and T, the number of transactions, are constant. So, if these are constant, that actually means what? If we know the variation mathematics, the chapter on variation, and varies the speed. The price will vary directly as the quantity money circulation. Assumptions of Fisher's theory is given. Price level is measured over a period of time. There are no credit sales. We are assuming only cash transactions. All this are given. So this MV because PT is assuming only cash transactions, and we also there are bank deposits. It's not only cash in the economy; it's also the bank deposits. So if that equation is a bit modified, if you also include the bank money, then it becomes MV plus M dash V dash equals to PT. M dash V dash is what? M dash is the quantity of bank money. V dash is the velocity of the bank money. So you have the main equation here. It's P equals to MV plus M dash V dash divided by T. the price level equals to this. So this equation basically explains as to why does the price level increase. Because we don't know, in India, like for example, in a country like India, we always have deficit financing. You know what is deficit financing? Government constantly goes on increasing the money supply in the economy by printing new notes or by borrowing from the RBI. In every budget, we have a deficit. And in order to finance that deficit, we have to follow the path of deficit financing. And so year by year, the money supply is increasing the economy. And year by year, we're having inflation. Rising prices is what? When there's a rise in price, that's called inflation. So Fisher's theory explains basically this portion. Coming to central bank, we know in India, the central bank is RBI. Central bank is what? The apex bank, which will control the entire monetary system of the economy. Functions, it's common like issuing notes. The issuing of currency notes is the prerogative, is the sole right of the RBI, the sole authority to issue the currency notes. You can read down all the advantages. Basically, if you know, I don't know whether you have the knowledge or not, of demonetization. People say that Modi ji had done the demonetization. Sorry, it's wrong. If you go down Google, if you study properly, earlier even before 2016, even when Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Honorable Prime Minister of India, RBI had suggested twice demonetization, but the government did not take the steps. So basically, what announcement was done by the Prime Minister because he has that authority to announce, but that was done on the basis of the recommendations of RBI. I'm trying to tell you what RBI, the function of note issue, and does that mean. Banker to banks, obviously, your or my account, we open up our accounts with the commercial banks. And the accounts of commercial banks are maintained by the RBI. Like you cannot go to RBI and say, I have to open up my account. You cannot open up your account in RBI, but the commercial banks have their accounts with RBI. And as you told earlier, the reserves, the excess reserve of all the commercial banks is maintained by the RBI. If the commercial banks require a loan, they borrow it from RBI. If the commercial banks want to rediscount their commercial papers, their bills of exchange, they go to the RBI. So it's Bankers Bank. It's also the bank of the government, uh, banker to the government. All accounts of the government also maintained with the central bank. It acts as an advisor to the government, and it also underwrites and issues the bonds. The bonds of the central government are issued by the RBI, by the central bank of the country. It is a custodian of the forex reserves. The foreign exchange reserves are maintained by the central bank. Management and regulation of exchange rate. Uh, if there are wide fluctuation in the exchange rate, with respect to exchange rate system, you must remember there are two types. One is the fixed exchange rate mechanical system, and the other one is flexible exchange rate system. So earlier, before 1991, we had the fixed exchange rate system, but thereafter we adopted the flexible exchange rate system. But still, under the flexible exchange rate mechanism, also we have a managed flexibility. At times, if the government feels, the RBI feels that the exchange rates are fluctuating too much, then the RBI can intervene in the market to contain the fluctuations in the exchange rate of the rupee vis-a-vis other foreign currencies. Credit control is a very important function of the central bank. We just discussed one point earlier, that how does a central bank control credit? We discussed by changing the reserve requirement. Yes, right. And the other methods as well. We should be discussing later on. RBI for MCQs obviously must know what established on 1st April 1935. It was established on 1st April 1935, but it was nationalized on. They're two different things. Establishment date was 1st April 1935, remember, but it was nationalized on 1st Jan 1949. Now, what is the meaning of nationalization? Sorry, what is the meaning of nationalization? Nationalization means you're bringing the system into the control of the government. Whenever a thing is brought directly under control of the government, when the government takes up the operation, that is called nationalization. You must also remember the executive head of the RBI is called the governor. On the currency notes, we find the signature of the governor, right? And you must also know the headquarters of RBI and Mumbai, and it has 22 offices across the country. Commercial banks, I'm not going to discuss in detail. Commercial banks are what? The State Bank of India, the Allahabad Bank, the Central Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, though some are merged now, Canada Bank, Syndicate Bank, wherein we can open up our accounts, we deposit our money. Commercial banks gives loan for short term to medium term. So the function of the commercial bank, it's accepting deposits, lending of funds, agency service. How come agency service? Bank collects our checks on our behalf. Uh, Bank makes payment on our behalf if we give standing instructions to the bank. So ECS mandate. All those are payments are made by the bank regularly without we having the burden of the payments. So I'm not going to discuss those functions. Bank issues of debit cards, credit cards, and all those functions are the primary and secondary functions. E-banking or the virtual banking, the online banking is definitely the need of the hour, the internet banking. Lot of uh, our efforts are now saved because of this internet banking. It has made business more smooth, and thanks maybe to the demonetization that India, Indian public, learned the art of using the online platforms that we survived this Corona period and this COVID-19 pandemic. Had there not been the popularity of e-banking, we would have suffered a lot. Um, this again can be a short MCQ. What is PIN? It's personal identification number. We need for using the online transactions. We need PIN for the debit card, credit card, and so required this personal identification number PIN. Types of e-banking. I'm not reading it all through. You can go through it. These are very easy portions. ATM. Again, the full form ATM can be a good MCQ. Automated teller machine. And what is EFT? Electronic fund transfer. You must know these portions. You must also know what is NEFT. What is RTGS? Full form of NEFT. Full form RTGS. This can be important short notes. Sorry, MCQs. Sorry. Types of risk is involved in e-banking. Obviously, there is a risk. Uh, there's several frauds taking place day in day out. That is because of the lack of knowledge on the part of customers. So we need to be careful. Monetary policy. Monetary policy is given by the Reserve Bank of India. Right. This can be shorter MCQ again. Next. Monetary policy is given by the RBI. What are the objects of the monetary policy? Growth with stability, that is controlling inflation and maintaining the stability of the economy is an important objective. Regulation, supervision, development of the financial stability, promoting the priority sector. Government through the monetary policy always brings out schemes for the priority sectors. Those sectors which will receive priority of the government, which are given importance. That what happens through the monetary policy, government, RBI issues directions for commercial banks to give loans at a lower rate of interest to the priority sectors. Basically, which are the weaker sections of the society, those industries, those sectors which need more attention, loans have to be given to those sectors at a lower rate of interest, and that is under the covered by the under the monetary policy with RBI. So these are basically the objectives: generation employment, external stability, that is stability of the Indian currency with vis-a-vis the foreign currency. I said so. Basically, there are two systems: fixed exchange rate mechanism, which we used to follow before 1981, and thereafter adopted the flexible exchange rate system. But again, in flexible exchange rate system, we follow the managed flexibility. That is, if required, RBI can interfere in the market. Encouraging savings investments, redistribution of income and wealth, regulation of NBFIs or NBFCs. Again, you should know the full form: non-banking financial institutions or non-banking financial companies. NBFI is non-banking financial institution. NBFC is non-banking financial companies. Uh, Credit control measures. There are two types of measures. One is a quantitative and the other one is a qualitative measure. Quantitative measures, we need to discuss what are quantitative measures. Quantitative measures or the general measures are what? These are such measures through which the flow of credit in the entire economy can be controlled. Means maybe increased, maybe decreased. Means through these measures, the flow of credit in the entire economy either goes up or it comes down. Not in any particular sector, but for the entire economy as a whole. In this category comes one which we already discussed, what changes the way in the reserve requirement. One is bank rate policy. What is bank rate? Bank rate is the rate at which the RBI rediscounts the commercial papers or the bills of exchange produced by the commercial banks. Means whenever the commercial banks are in need of funds, they will go to the RBI with their commercial papers or the bills of exchange and ask the RBI to rediscount them. Why the word rediscount? Because as businessmen, when we require funds, the chapter on bill of exchange and accounts you must have read, you have known that we go to the commercial banks to discount our bills. We get the money in advance. Now, when the commercial bank is in need of funds, commercial bank will go to the RBI and get those bills rediscounted. The RBI will charge a certain discounting charge. That is the bank rate, right? Or basically, it's nothing but we can also call the interest rate. That means the rate of interest at which the RBI gives loan to the commercial banks. So I hope you understand, if the flow of credit is to be reduced, if the flow of credit needs to be reduced, bank rate will be hiked. Bank rate will be increased. If the bank rate is increased, the flow of credit goes down and vice versa. So for MCQ exams, you must remember that the bank rate and the credit creation are inversely related. Yeah. One is OMO, the open market operations. Open market operations what? purchase and sale of long-term or short-term securities, basically bonds or securities by the RBI in the open market. Now, how does it affect the credit creation process? If the RBI wants to reduce the flow of credit in the economy, it will issue bonds in the market. It will issue government securities in the market. What happens if the RBI issues securities? We as individuals, we purchase those securities. Why? Because they're good investments and they're most safe investments. Now, the moment you purchase a government security or a government bond, you will have to issue a check drawn on your savings account or current account. That means what? Now the money from your commercial bank will go to the Reserve Bank. That means when the RBI has issued bonds, the reserves which the commercial bank is having will go down because now the money will go to the RBI. That is a lending potential of the commercial banks will fall. And even commercial banks also will at times will have to purchase some portion of these securities because RBI dictates it. Now, when these are issued, the liquid reserves of the commercial bank falls down because commercial bank itself has to purchase as well as the individuals are purchasing by drawing checks on the commercial bank. So the power, the lending potential of the commercial bank goes down. And vice versa. If the RBI feels that the credit creation has to be increased, the RBI will repurchase the bonds already issued in the market or will go in for their early redemption. Like in this period of COVID-19, RBI had redeemed a number of bonds. You know why? Just to increase the flow of credit in the economy. What's the point? Variation in the reserve ratios, I already explained. Reverse repo and the repo rate. Basically, repo rate is the rate at which the commercial banks borrow money from the central bank in case there is any shortage. And reverse repo is ulta, reverse. When RBI borrows money from the commercial bank, then the rate of interest which RBI pays to the commercial bank. When it's two things. In case of shortage fund, if commercial bank is borrowing from the RBI, the rate of interest charged is repo rate, and reverse repo rate is when RBI is borrowing from the commercial banks. These were the quantitative methods through which the overall flow of credit in the economy either goes down or goes up, not in any particular sector. But the next method is the qualitative instruments, the selective tools. Under this method, what happens? Under the qualitative methods of the selective tools, flow of credit into any particular sector is controlled, into any particular segment of the economy. Say, for example, the government wants that the flow of credit to the housing sector, real estate, construction industry has to be increased. The government will have, the RBI will have to take certain steps to ensure that the flow of credit in the entire economy is not affected, but it affects only the housing sector. How come? The best is the fixing the margin requirements. How come? Whenever you or me, we are in need of loan, we go to a bank. Bank asks for collateral, for security. Now suppose you want to purchase a flat worth rupees, say 50 lakhs. Bank will ask for security Normally, this, the bank gives loan on the security of that flat itself. Now you want to purchase a flat of 50 lakhs. Bank will not give you a loan of 50 lakhs. Bank, say for example, just take an example with the margin requirement. We're going to explain what is margin requirement. If the margin requirement as per the bank is 40%, that means what that you will have to finance, you'll have to pay out of your own pocket 20 lakhs, 40% of 50 lakhs. That means you will have to contribute 20 lakhs. Bank will pay the remaining 30 lakhs to the promoter, and now you are the owner of the flat. But the legal document of that flat, of that property, will remain with the bank. That means bank has kept with it a security of 50 lakhs, but has given a loan of only 30 lakhs. So the margin was 40%. Now, if the RBI, if the central bank of the country, wants that the flow of credit to the housing sector should increase, the RBI will give an instruction to the commercial banks to reduce the margin requirement. Margin requirement को कम करने बोल देगा. That means now, if the margin requirement is reduced from 40% to 20%, what will happen? Now you will have to pay out of your own pocket only 10 lakhs, 20% of 50 lakhs. You'll have to pay only 10 lakhs. The remaining 40 lakhs will be financed by the commercial bank. That means now more people will start taking loans. Because investing 20 lakhs maybe would have been a difficulty for a few people, but now investing 10 lakh would be more easy for those people now. Because now you have to invest only 10 lakhs. And hence the flow of credit will increase, but only for the real estate segment. That is called fixing the margin requirements. There are other methods as well. Consumer credit regulation regarding the loans and the EMIs, installment when you're purchasing bikes or the motor cars on the installment payment system. Uh, Credit rationing is putting restrictions on the amount of loans to be given away in a month or on one particular sector. And moral suasion is what basically giving guidance to the banks that we should follow this path. That is, moral suasion is which one is not compulsory, but it's a guidance to the banking system. Normally, every bank follows it. I'll just pick up a bit of MCQs on this portion. Just a few MCQs I'm going to pick up because already we have covered the entire chapter from the study material. Demand deposit, the banks are considered as money because they are. Why are demand deposits? Demand deposits are savings account and the current account. Why they are considered as money? Because they are generally acceptable as a means of payment. Because they're generally acceptable as a means of payment. Next. Two, money includes currency in the demand deposits, bond, government securities, equity shares, all the above. For the answer, money includes. Obviously, if we here, if such a question, it has to be A. It's currencies in the demand deposits. Equity shares obviously not money, and bonds government they are, but they are near money. They're not money. They are near money. So if it is money, then that answer is A. Which of the following is a function of money? Obviously, all of the above is the correct answer. Number D, all of the above. For question number 4, M1 is the most liquid measure. Dash is the most liquid measure of the money supply. Most liquid measure is M1. It's not M4. Most liquid measure is M1, and M1 is nothing but called the narrow money. And broad money, as I said, is M4. M1 in the money stock in India refers to M1 in the money stock in India refers to what? Question number 7. Sorry, yeah, number 7. 5 we already discussed. 5 is M1 and 6 is M4. Narrow money means the money which will be giving a lower value. Means in counting, the M1, M2, M3, M4. So in M1, we are taking only the currency and the demand deposits plus the OD, the other deposits of the RBI. So the value of M1 will always be the lowest. That's the narrow money. And the value M4 will always be the highest. So M4 is called the broad money. Number 7 is C. That's the right answer. Shivani, Pallavi, Tanu, everyone. Number 8. M1 is defined by RBI as per the latest definition. Yes, it's B. Currency plus demand deposits plus other deposits. So, which of the following is not included in M1? Question number 9. Not included in M1. Obviously, other deposits with post office is not included in M1. I'll move on to a bit different questions. Though these few questions are not there directly in the study material, but still, you must know they have put this over here. Major commercial banks of India were nationalized in. Commercial banks were nationalized in 1969, and in 1969, you must remember 14 banks were nationalized. 14, and again, 6 more banks were nationalized in 1980. So I hope you got the 15, 16, 17. For question 15, the answer is 1969. For number 16, the answer is C, 14. For number 17, the answer is number D, that is 6. Uh, why were the banks nationalized? The banks were nationalized because before that period, government found that the commercial banks were opening up the branches only in the urban areas because in the urban areas it was more profitable, and as a result, the agriculture sector was most neglected by the commercial banks, and there was a concentration of economic power. To avoid these problems, government tried a lot. Government asked the commercial banks to open up their branches in the semi-urban and the rural areas, but they did not follow the instructions. Therefore, lastly in 1969, government took over the entire banking system, nationalized all the commercial banks, 14 to be more specific. Profitability of the banks has declined over the years due to because of all these 3 reasons. The answer is D. It's lower interest on government borrowing from the bank. Whenever the government is borrowing from the bank, the government is paying a low rate of interest. Subsidization of credit to the priority sector. Priority sectors are given rate of interest lower rate as per the instructions of the RBI. So that's also one reason why the profitability is going down. And high expenditure resulting from overstaffing and mushrooming of branches. Too many branches have to be opened up under instruction of the government, and there are more staff as compared to what is actually required. There is overstaffing. So because of all of these reasons, the profitability of commercial banks was declining constantly in India. Nationalized banks include obviously SBI is a nationalized bank, Citibank and Amex are not nationalized banks. PNB, Punjab National Bank, SBI, Canada Bank are all examples of public sector banks. They're all PSU banks. ICICI Bank is a private commercial bank. The full form of ICICI is Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation of India. C. Option C. Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation of India. 24. The least liquidity. Out of these four, which one has the least liquidity? Answer is immovable property. Question is, when was the RBI established? Set up. I hope you remember I said now the set up in 1935. 1949 it was nationalized, but it was set up in 1935. RBI has no branches, remember. RBI does not have branch. It has offices in several parts of the country, but they are not branches. RBI will have no branch, remember. We have RBI in several, in the headquarters in Mumbai, in Calcutta we have an office, but they are just the offices. We cannot call them branches. So RBI has no branches. 27, who is called the Bank of Issue, means uh, issuing notes is done by RBI. 28, again answer is RBI. 29, again the answer is RBI because fiscal agent and advisor to government. Bankers Bank is again RBI. Again 31, banks are regulated by RBI. Lender of last resort is RBI. 34, custodian of monetary reserves, RBI. So this is just sample questions we liked that I think we should discuss. Like monetary policy. Monetary policy, who brings out? RBI does issue the monetary policy. Uh, just a few more questions. Like come on to 39. Wait, sorry. Yeah. Dash controls effect and dash controls affect indiscriminately all sectors of the economy. Now let me see if you can answer this one. Dash controls affect. I'm talking of question number 39. Yes, that's a good answer. Quantitative controls affect indiscriminately all sectors of the economy. Correct. Number 40. Which of the following is not a quantitative measure of credit control? 40. Which of the following is not a quantitative measure? Bank rate is a quantitative measure. Open market operation is a quantitative measure. Variable reserve account is also a quantitative measure. C. Consumer credit regulation is not a quantitative, it is a qualitative measure. Next. Again 41. Which of the following is not a quantitative measure? 41. Yes, C is the correct answer. Next. 42. 42 was the answer. Dash is official minimum rate. Obviously C, the bank rate. That is the central bank of the country is prepared to rediscount approved bills held by banks. I said approved bills held by bank. Rediscounting, that's called the bank rate. So open market operations by a commercial bank involve open market operations 43 onwards. Open market operations by a central bank involve what is open market operation? Yes, that's A. Sale and purchase of government securities. Next, whatever. Dash refers to that portion of total deposits of a commercial bank which it has to keep in RBI in the form of cash reserve. Yes, answer A is correct. 44. CRR. That's the right answer. Cash reserve ratio. That cash reserve ratio is determined by 45. Yes, C. Monetary Authority. Kushi Gupta. That's a good answer coming up today. It's Monetary Authority. 46. Dash refers to that portion of the total deposits of a commercial bank which it has to keep with itself in the form of liquid assets. 46. Yes, SLR is again good answer. Divya Soni, Mohammed Nudul, good answer. Increase 47. An increase in SLR will result in 47. Increase in SLR will result in if the SLR is increased, obviously the profitability goes down. So there will be an increase in the revenue deficit. 48 dash is the rate at which RBI lends money to commercial banks against approved securities for meeting their day-to-day requirement to fill up the short-term gap. That is repo rate, right? 48 is repo rate. Dash is the rate at which RBI lends money to commercial banks against approved securities for meeting their day-to-day requirements or to fill up the short-term gap. That is called repo rate. 49. Dash is the rate at which RBI borrows money from the commercial banks. Reverse repo rate. Option D. 49. The answer is reverse repo rate. 50. Open market purchase of government bonds by RBI will have the tendency to. The government is purchasing the bonds from the open market. If the government is purchasing the bonds from the open market, what will happen? Money will go from RBI to the commercial banks. So the money supply will increase. First thing is sure. And we understand if the money supply increases, the rate of interest will go down. If the money supply increases, the rate of interest goes down. So answer is A, 50. Open market purchase of government bonds by RBI will have the tendency to decrease the interest rates but increase the money supply. Next, 51. Next one, uh, 51. In order to control credit, in order to control credit, CRR should be increased and the bank rates should be increased. Pallavi, both should go with the same direction because CRR increases, credit control goes down. Bank rate also increases, credit control goes down. So the answer should have been 51. The answer should have been C. 52. In order to increase the money supply in the country, correct answer. In order to control credit in the country, RBI may. In order to control the credit, remember, that means credit को कम करना है, credit को reduce करना है. So obviously sell securities in open market because when the securities are being sold, money will come out of the system and will go to RBI. 55. The objective of selective credit controls is mainly to. Yes, answer is B. That's right. Selectively allocate credit among borrowers. Selectively allocate credit among borrowers. So these are just sample questions for your reference from this portion. I'll move on towards Indian eco, the Indian economy portion. Uh, just give me one moment. I think we have go to the screen of Indian economy and overview. One second. Hmm. As far as the basic characteristics of the Indian economy is concerned, first I'll give an overview, and I'll suggest you all that while you're reading at your home, you're preparing, and I'm sure you must have been well prepared by now. Still, basic inputs I'll give. You should go on underlining those key sentences, key data which you feel are important from the examination perspective, examination point of view. You should go on underlining those portions. Um, basic characteristics, we all know that when India became independent, 1947, uh, our economy was in a very bad shape. We almost had 500 years of slavery, first by the Mughals for 300 years and another 200 years by the Britishers. Our economy was shattered into pieces. At the time of independence, almost 80% of the population was dependent upon agriculture, and agriculture itself was in a very bad shape. The domestic industries had been destroyed by the Britishers for their own benefit, for the benefit of the colonial empire which they had set up, for the benefit of the Britishers. The domestic industries of the country were shattered into pieces. We were brought down by the Britishers to be a mere supplier of raw materials, and we were a market for their finished product. That is, raw materials of our country was being exported to their nation at a very lower rate, and using the raw materials of finished product were prepared and were launched into India. And again, our money was going out. Entrepreneurial ability among the Indians was missing. So the government adopted the policy of a mixed economic system. And that too, in that mixed economic system, the proportion of socialism was more and the proportion of capitalism was less. That is, more importance was given to the public sector and lesser importance was given to the private sector. The reason was very simple, because the private sector was not matured enough. We had the policy of closed economy with very few, with very less transactions with the rest of the world. Uh, we started growing somehow. In 1950, government set up the Planning Commission, and I hope you all know that the Planning Commission had several objectives. It used to prepare the 5-year plans for the economic development of the country, and according to those plans, the government budget was allocated to different areas of the economy. And the Planning Commission was existent in India till the year 2014. On 1st Jan 2015, the Planning Commission was scrapped completely, and instead of that, Niti Aayog took over. That is, the 12th 5-year plan was the last plan which was prepared by the Planning Commission. Thereafter, the government found that Planning Commission now no longer required. You know why? Because our economy is now no longer socialist. As I said, in the mixed economy, our element of socialism was much more. But since 1991, since we had gone in for the phase of LPG, liberalization, privatization, and globalization, the role of public sector started declining. It went on reducing. So now we have more importance to the private sector. Now Niti Aayog was required, the National Institution for Transforming India, of which the ex-official chairperson is the Prime Minister of the nation. That is currently it is being headed by Narendra Modi, by by our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So the question comes that the last plan of the Planning Commission was which one? Was it 12th plan? Was the last plan which is prepared by the Planning Commission? You have all those portions from the study material, but I'm just trying to pick up a few portions. Yeah, follow the answers, right? I don't know, Abhinav. I'm having here my connection is absolutely proper. The video is buffering. I don't know where the connection issue is. I think here it's perfectly fine for my end. National income. We know it's if we go in terms of the measurement, it's NNPFC. NNPFC is the national income of a country. Next, if obviously these tables are not required to be learned to be mugged up at any cost, but yes, you must have brief outline with idea that when we become independent, major part of the income of the country was coming from the primary sector because we were more of an agrarian economy, agricultural economy. As I said, 80% of the population was dependent upon agriculture and their land activities. Uh, However, with the passage of time, the secondary sector started getting importance and our working population started shifting from agriculture to the manufacturing sector. And later on, the service sector, the tertiary sector, insurance, transportation, banking, warehousing, that is the tertiary sector. The tertiary sector started getting importance. And now the scenario is that tertiary sector contributes highest to the GDP of the country, and agriculture contributes the lowest. You can see the chart on the screen. Agriculture and allied services, that is the primary industries. They are contributing just 18.4% of the GDP in 2015 2016, whereas the service sector is contributing the highest 53.3%, and industries are contributing just 28.3%. Industries are manufacturing with the second to second. Uh, that is what is given over here. These portions you have to go through for your self-analysis purpose. Sectoral employment, if you look at the in terms of employment, Mohammed, obviously all the data are not required, but yes, few of the data, like the recent data, are required, like agriculture, employs till now 53% of the total population. Industry employs 21.5% of the total workforce, and the services sector employs 25.4. Can you see the difference? In service sector, we are having only 25.4% employment, whereas the service sector is just wait, is contributing a lot more to the GDP. And agriculture is contributing just 18.4%, but it is employing 53.2%. And that is the reason why Indians are poor, why majority Indians are poor. Because so many people employed in agriculture, but it is contributing very less. You know why? Because the agricultural productivity is low. That is, the productivity per hectare land is very low in India. And that is the reason farmers are poor. Capital formation means accumulation of more capital goods in the economy. Uh, and that totally depends upon savings. Now, since in India, the income level was very low in the initial years. So the rate of savings is also very low. However, gradually the rate of savings has increased. And obviously, with the increase in savings, the rate of capital formation in the country is also increased. Obviously, these data are not required to be learned. Don't worry. So that you need to remember so much of data is not that. Inflation is constantly increasing in India. When it's inflation is constant rise in prices. You must know what is WPI, what is CPI. WPI is Wholesale Price Index. CPI is Consumer Price Index. Just know the full forms basically. Foreign capital investment earlier was not allowed. Before 1991, there were very strict restrictions on the foreign capital and investment, though it was allowed in some cases, but the restrictions were not there. But after 1981, we changed our economic policies and foreign capital and investment. The flow of foreign capital investment became very easy. You do not require go through this chart at all. Foreign trade, as I said, during the British rule, we were majorly exporters of the handicrafts or of raw materials, of textile, and we imported their finished product, the machines, and the other manufactured goods. Though in recent years, we have become a major exporter of softwares. We are earning a lot out of software exports, that export of intangible items basically. Balance of payment situation, we know balance of payment situation means the balance of imports and exports, means which you will have to pay to outsiders. And the balance of payment situation of India was always normally adverse. You always had a bad balance of payment situation. Uh, but recent years, the balance of payment, the deficit in the balance of payment has reduced constantly. We've improved a lot on the balance of payment front. Now, the challenges of the development issue in the Indian economy was a low per capita income. The per capita income of India was one of the lowest. Um, like the data which is given in 2014, the per capita income was $1,567. It's per person per year was earning only 1,567, and the per capita income of US is almost 35 times that. That is just see how rich they are and how poor we are. Um, Huge dependence of population on agriculture. Yes, a large part of the population was earlier dependent on agriculture. Now also we have a huge percent of population working on agriculture. Overall population ratio is very high. We are the second largest populated country, only after China. Chronic unemployment and underemployment. That is, chronic means it is a ongoing process and it's through ages. Constantly, we have people who are chronically poor, means who are always poor. Underemployment is what? That is, suppose you're employed for a work of 8 hours in a day, but you get a job only for 4 hours. The rest 4 hours you sit idle. You're having no work to do. That is chronic unemployment, and unemployment is again another problem. Slow improvement in the rate of capital formation. The capital formation is increasing, but not to a great extent. It is increasing at a very lower pace, where it should be at a very high pace, but it's not increasing. Inequality in wealth distribution. Obviously, India suffers from this problem of inequality of wealth distribution and income distribution. If we just see one data in the fifth line in this inequality wealth distribution, in India, the richest 1% of Indians, the richest 1% of Indians have 58% of the total Indian wealth. Can you just imagine? Only 1% people are having 58% of the wealth of the country. Poor quality human capital. Human capital is very poor in India as per the reports of UNDP, United Nations Development Program. You must know the full forms. United Nations Development Program. According to the reports of the UNDP, UNDP prepares, the HDI, Human Development Index. Human Development Index is prepared on basis of longevity, the life expectancy at birth, in terms of educational attainment, and several other factors. And according to the UNDP report, the quality of human capital in India is very poor. Why? Because people are underfed, they're poor, and they can't have the both ends meet. They have no access to basic education, and there are a lot of other reasons. This chart obviously is not required. Technological absorption of technology is very low, and hence low level of technological absorption, and because of which obviously productivity suffers a lot. Lack of access to basic amenities. Majority of Indians do not have access to the basic amenities like proper food and safe drinking water even, and the sanitation facilities. As that is the reason the government has launched various schemes for the poor people, so that they can have both the ends meet. They can have proper toilets at their homes. Different schemes government have launched. Next comes demographic characteristics. Density of population is very high in India. Density of population means how many persons are living per square kilometer. In 1 square kilometer, how many people are living? And remember, though we are second to China, China is first in terms of total world population. I mean, in terms of number of people living, and India is the second position. However, the density of population in India is higher than China. Why? China has greater geographical area than India. The geographical area which China is having is much more than that of India. And therefore, the density of population in China is lower than that of India. Resources are underutilized, infrastructure, proper infrastructure is not there. Uh, 5-year plans, we said, planning commission was established in 1950. Uh, then Niti Aayog is also mentioned over here. You should know what it is. Different plans had different approaches. First 5-year plan was framed when Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was the Prime Minister of India. Focus, the second phase was on the rapid industrialization of the country. That is, the second plan had laid focus on heavy and capital goods industries. The plan was framed by basically Professor Mahalanobis, and hence the plan is also called Mahalanobis model. Many heavy and capital goods industries were established in India during this phase. All are not required, but at least Certain points from certain plans are required. The fourth plan was based on the Gadgil strategy, and basically it was a progressive achievement of self-reliance. Last plan was the 12th plan. उसके बाद planning commission was scrapped and Niti Aayog, as we discussed, was brought into limelight. Niti Aayog was established on 1st Jan 2015. Uh, it's not mentioned over here, but you should note down that the Prime Minister is the ex officio chairperson, and next, Niti Aayog basically will serve as a think tank for government, both at the central and state level. It frames the policies, the technical and the strategic advices to the central government and the state government uh, for fostering the phase of development of the economy. Next is uh, the sectoral policies in this portion. You must know about the Green Revolution uh, and what led to the Green Revolution. Actually, after independence, we found that in several years, we primarily, in spite of being an agricultural economy, we had to import food grains from outside. There's several times famines, droughts, agricultural production was shattered. Because I said that, in spite of being an agricultural economy, our productivity per hectare land was very low. The farmers were uneducated. They did not have the savings to purchase the modern tractors and other equipments. Now, that opened the eyes of the government that yeah, there was a serious need to revamp the entire agricultural system of the country. Therefore, during 1960s, the government launched the program of Green Revolution. In Hindi, it was called Hari Kranti, the Green Revolution. Under this policy, under this revolution, the farmers were trained as to how to use the high yielding variety seeds, and along with that, how to take the benefits of irrigation, because the high yielding variety seeds would have required the application of insecticides and pesticides, as well as a proper level of water was required, right? And the Green Revolution increased the agricultural production many times, though the impact was not uniform on all the crops. On all the crops, it was not uniform. The biggest impact was on the production of wheat. We became self-sufficient, self-reliant in the production of wheat, and such that there was a surplus production, huge production. And therefore, Green Revolution also at times called the Wheat Revolution. Remember, it's also called the Wheat Revolution. And again, Green Revolution, did not impact the entire country uniformly. The logic is very simple. The government brings out schemes and policies. It's upon we people whether we accept it or not. Uh, it had made a great progress in Western UP, Haryana, Punjab, There the people accepted it wholeheartedly, and a lot of improvement was there. Farmers became fabulous rich, but across the length and breadth of the country, everywhere it was not uniform. Uh, it obviously the Green Revolution proved to be a boon. We became self-sufficient in terms of uh, food. Industrial policy. You just need to remember that the first industrial policy resolution was in 1948. Uh, then the second policy statement was in 1956. The rest all we did not know. But we must know the industrial policy in 1991, which changed the entire face of the Indian economy. And it was on 24th July 1991, the new industrial policy was launched. At that time, uh, P.V. Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister and Manmohan Singh was the Finance Minister at that time. Uh, Basically, in this policy, uh, we introduced a policy of LPG liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Uh, Licensing system was abolished to a great extent. MRTP Act was abolished, basically. Uh, Economic reforms, just it's a byproduct of the new industrial policy, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Globalization means opening of the economy to the world economy. Imports and exports were liberalized. Import duties were cut down. Tariffs and the quotas were cut down to a lot of extent. Then GST was introduced in India in 2017. Goods and service tax is a consumption-based tax, remember, or we call it destination-based tax. In GST, there is no difference between goods and services. And more than 150 countries in the world are having GST. Uh, this chronology on GST you did not remember at all. This long chart is not required. Demonetization. You all know you have been through that trauma and the pain. Coming to per capita income in India is quite low as compared to the developed nations. A bit ago, we found that the per capita income of USA is almost 35 times that of India, and that's definitely in terms of purchasing power parity. In terms of purchasing power parity, it was just 10 times, right? uh, Still, we are quite low. Even in China, the per capita income is very high as compared to India. Population, in terms of population, we already discussed that we are number 2 in the world, and in India, we know that the ratio of females to males is poor. That is, per thousand males, we have lesser number of females, right? That is because of the gender biasness, and in certain parts of the country, we know that a female child is killed in the fetus itself, or maybe even after childbirth, it's killed, and therefore, in certain parts of the country, we have very less females as compared to the males. That is because of lack of knowledge on the part of the people, uneducated people. Human Development Index is constructed by UNDP, we discussed, by the United Nations Development Program. And you must remember one thing in the third line, as per the Human Development Report 2015, India ranks 130 out of 188 countries. Since out of 188 countries in the report, India is in the position of 130. That is, we are far behind development. Human Development Index is based upon, just read the second line, is based on life expectancy, education attainment, and per capita income. Based upon these three parameters, an average of these three taken together, Human Development Index is prepared. It basically shows the level of economic development of the country. Out of 180 countries, India is standing in the position of 130. Um, so uh, here about BRICS nation. BRICS nation. I hope you must know what is BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and Sri Lanka are part of the. It's given Brazil, China, Russia, India, and South Africa. Um, Obviously, in terms of research and development, though we are a bit ahead of other countries because of the better technical manpower available in our country. These questions not required. The uh, yeah, like you just need to know a few of the things, like this portion of what is Manrega, right? Uh, for the development of the youth, the government has started with the National Skills Development Corporation for providing training to the youth people. Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Kendras are being set up under PMKY schemes. Poor and for the underprivileged, government is having the Mahila Shakti Kendra, Anganwadi centers. Government has set up for self-employment generation. Next is sorry, there was something urgent call coming up. Infrastructure. Uh, the new budget, government is spending more on the infrastructure. Just need to go to these portions. For financial sector reforms, FIBB, it was Foreign Investment Promotion Board, has been abolished, and for the trading of the agriculture commodities, ENAM has been electronic agriculture market. ENAM has been introduced so that the farmers can fetch a better price for their food products. You must know the full form of what is the CPSEs. CPSEs are what? Central Public Sector Enterprises. Central Public Sector Enterprises are called CPSEs. What is PPP? Here you have on the screen. PPP is Public Private Partnership, is called PPP. Government has launched the BHIM app, uh, out of which these data are not required and how many people are using it in all those portions. Just a few questions, and even this portion, the personal income tax, the slab rates have been reduced. You must know these slab rates have been reduced in the budget. I'll just come up with some MCQs, few sample MCQs. First thing, economic development is, always remember, economic development is a broader concept than economic growth. Economic growth is a narrow concept. Economic growth implies only growth in national income or the per capita income. Growth in national income or the per capita income is economic growth. But economic development means, along with growth, there has to be an improvement in the institutional facilities. Means, if along with economic growth, if the transport and communication system is improving, if there are more colleges and schools coming up, is there improvement in the medical facilities, if there's improvement in the quality of life and the standard of living of the people, then we say there's economic development. So obviously economic development is more broader term than economic growth. UNDP we discussed. UNDP is United Nations Development Program. It's option B, number two. United Nations Development Program. Like India, India is predominantly, earlier we were underdeveloped economy. Shivani, you can please write the chat box. Uh, cannot see the MCQs. Okay. Just wait 1 second. I got it. I got it. Now it's visible. Now is the screen visible? Okay. Thank you. It was a mistake from my end. I switched, but I yeah. So general economy is considered underdeveloped. Why? When? When the standard of living the people is low and the productivity is also low. That's correct. Agriculture is the main occupation of people. That's correct. And productivity in agriculture is quite low. Production techniques are backward. All the three above are the features of an underdeveloped economy. So it's the number four. An underdeveloped economy is generally characterized by a don't be in a hurry, be careful. High ratio of commercial farming to subsistence farming. Obviously not. Because in the case of underdeveloped economy, we have more of subsistence level of farming. That is, farming is done just for self-consumption. That is called subsistence level of farming. High ratio of industrial output to total output. That is also not, because in underdeveloped economy, we have more of primary output coming in from the primary industry. So these also not right. High utilization of existing capital. No, capital utilization is very low. It's underutilization. Coexistence of underutilized labor with unexploited national and other resources. Yes, that's correct. In underdeveloped economy, we have underutilized labor and the resources are also underutilized. Number five, mark the correct statement. India is what? Obviously a developing economy. Kushigupta is right answer. Five is C. It's a developing economy. Yes, everyone. Midul, Pallavi, all good answers. Occupational structure refers to, what is the meaning of occupational structure? Basically based upon what occupation people have chosen for their livelihood. So option A is not right. Size of working population in the industrial sector. Yes. Distribution of working population among different occupations. That is also more proper. Nature of different occupations. Obviously not. So now A and D is one. B and C. Obviously C is the right answer. Distribution of working population among different occupations. Very good answer coming up by Sangavetla Pallavi Kushi Divya Sori, everyone. It's C. Distribution of working population among different occupations. Number seven, which of the following is not included in the primary sector? All the three are in primary sector. Fishery, this primary sector is animal husbandry, agriculture, fishing, forestry. So seven is D. Seven is none of the above. Coming to question number eight. Manufacturing industry is a part of, that's right answer, secondary sector. Number nine. Occupational structure of India's labor force since 1951 has. Occupational structure of India's labor force since 1951 has obviously changed significantly. We found now that during independence, more people were engaged in agriculture and very few in the service sector. Now it has changed drastically. This 9 is A. Number 10. Why is Indian economy a mixed economy? Give the options. Number 10. Why is Indian economy a mixed economy? Yes, that's right. C is the correct answer. Number 11. Agriculture provides employment to dash percent of the working population of the country. Number 11. Agriculture provides employment to dash percentage of the working population of the country. It's right now it's 52%. It's not 60 or 55. It's 52%. That's the right answer. Next, the share of agriculture in India's national income has. The share of agriculture in India's national income has. That is, in the total national income, the share of agriculture obviously has declined. Earlier it was very high. Now we saw now that the share of service sectors increased and the share of agriculture has decreased. So 12 answer is B, decreased. What is the contribution of agriculture to the national income in India? Yes, very good answer. 13 is B, 17%. Now it's only 17, 18% we are getting just. So 70% is the option is right answer. 14. Uh, which of the following is incorrect? Read these questions and find the answer yourself. Which is incorrect? Correct answer coming up by a lot of you. No, sorry, 2013. Shivani Pal has been the answer. Yeah, it's B. India has been a big importer of food grains, especially since 1990s. Obviously not. Since 1990s, we have not been an importer of food grains. That is incorrect. The rest are obviously A and C are correct. Coming to 15, I'll give you some reading time then. 15, 16, read these questions. Yes, 15B is correct. HYV seeds. Full form is high yielding variety seeds. Next, 16. Green revolution, also known as, yes, wheat revolution, I said. Good. 17. Agriculture faces the problem of, in India, like, what's the problem for agriculture? The major problem is the slow and uneven growth. The growth rate is slow and uneven. And why uneven? At times we're having a very good monsoon, so we're having very good output because we are still dependent upon monsoon. So it's slow and uneven growth. The area under irrigation has increased. Sorry, Kushi, Badul, this is the wrong answer. 18. Area under irrigation has increased over the years because over these years, government has made arrangements for irrigation from different rivers. We have made up lines for the water supply to the villages, to the fields. So irrigation facilities have been increased a lot. So have increased. Okay. So that is wrong. Okay. 19. That is Apex Bank for Agricultural Credit in India. Sanjana, sorry, Pallavi, again that's wrong. It's not SIDBI, it's NABARD. For agricultural credit, it's NABARD. What is the full form of NABARD? National Bank for Agricultural and Rural Development. National Bank for Agricultural and Rural Development. NABARD is Apex Bank for Agricultural Credit in India. 20. The second plan's program of industrialization was based on the Mahalanobis model. Yes, that's the right answer. Mahalanobis model stressed upon the establishment of capital and basic goods industries. 21. Mahalanobis model stressed upon the establishment. We discussed already that Mahalanobis stressed that if more capital goods and basic industries are established, the country will become more stronger. Next, 22. A strategy of heavy industry is sometimes preferred for a developing economy because it can provide a strong base for rapid industrialization. 22. A strategy of heavy industry is sometimes preferred for a developing economy because it can provide a strong base for rapid industrialization. ONGC, Indian Corporations, State of India, Bharat Heavy Electricals are all examples of public sector units. Yes, 23C, they're all PSUs. Uh, Small scale sector exists in India all the three reasons because they're labor intensive and India is a labor surplus economy. They offer methods of ensuring more equitable distribution of income and wealth. They facilitate the creation of wide entrepreneurial base, all of the above. 25. Which sector of the Indian economy contributes largest to the to the national income? Obviously, the tertiary sector is the correct answer. BPO stands for business process outsourcing. It's B, 26. Business process outsourcing is BPO. I'll skip a few questions because this is not required. Basically, that's it. Uh, so basically, for this portion of Indian economy, you're required, go to the map, keep on underlining. You're not required to mug up a lot of the data, but still, a few datas of the recent years are required. Someone says the math is of 15, 16, and the recent data will be required. No, whatever is given the study material, that portion will be required. So you do not go beyond that. So I'll call it a day. We'll meet again and perhaps having one more class for statistics. 80% of the people is from economics and 20% is from statistics. You all know very well. So hope I've done justice to both the chapters. A quick revision for you all. Booster capsule basically. Thank you everyone for your wonderful participation. Have a great day and a great time ahead. We'll meet again in the next class with statistics.